What up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burst. Cheer.
Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ben Busy broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan.
This is AJ McComb broadcasting from Greenville, South Carolina, and this is the Get Busy Podcast, episode number 7.
All right, good to go. How's it going, AJ? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just had dinner, so I'm got full belly. I'm ready to get busy.
What did you have?
We went out and I had prime rib with steamed vegetables, and then
nice.
You ever had bang bang shrimp?
Nah, what is it, like Cajun style?
It's like fried shrimp, and then it's coated in like this orange spicy sauce. I mean, it's
Nice.
really good. And it wasn't bang bang shrimp because that's from Bonefish Grill, but it's like this local restaurant's take on bang bang shrimp. Man, it's real good.
You say it's spicy?
It's got a little bit of spice to it.
A little bit of spice.
Yeah, nothing like Cajun-y or anything like that, but it's just got a little spice to it, like maybe use pepper or something. But it's real good.
I like that spice. I like that spice, though. You're going to have to hit it with the Tabasco a little bit.
No, it's a sweet, spicy sauce. You just pick up the fried shrimp, pop in your mouth. It's good.
Boom. It's done. Just like that. It's how it goes down, ladies and gentlemen. It's how we do over here. Spicy or not spicy, it don't matter.
Eating
We're cooking
good,
it up.
too.
We're chefing it up. We're actually not cooking or chefing anything. We're going to a restaurant where people actually know how to do that stuff. But we're eating food nonetheless. Yes.
All day, every day. Don't forget that.
So, what's going on in the world today, AJ?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things happening, from political to weather to or quote unquote business transactions, if you want to call it that. I mean,
you said weather. I wanna just clarify that. You mean weatherological, right?
yeah,
I'm just
yeah. Like,
I'm messing around.
no, what I meant though was the earthquake in Chile,
Okay.
because we did mention in the previous podcast about the earthquake that happened in Mexico. It got a little bit of attention. It wasn't anything major, but
Right.
it correlates because it happened on the same fault line, and it happened, I believe, I think it was within a week of each other. Obviously, one was much bigger than the other and got more attention, but it still happened.
Right. I mean, that's an interesting topic to broach. There was recently an application, pretty robust application, released by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, called the SOS Science on a Sphere Explorer. And it's pretty robust. It tracks pretty much everything. Like, I'm looking at the website now. I'll provide a link for people. But my dad is taking a weather course right now, like as a continuing education. It's something that interests him. And if you're into weather or natural disasters or whatever the case may be, this piece of software is extraordinarily robust. They track everything: age of the seafloor, agriculture, like atmospheric chemistry, the biosphere, hurricanes. They have hurricane tracks, cumulative hurricane tracks, which you can visualize on a 3D rendering of planet Earth from 1950 to 2005. It's really quite incredible, like the amount of data that went into it. The only trade-off is that it's pretty big. It's like 4.6 gigs. But it's pretty cool. They have a whole tectonics section where they're tracking, presumably they're tracking real-time earthquake data from all over the world. And I'm surprised that really there hasn't been an algorithm that has been produced yet that's able to accurately predict earthquakes. I think there's a certain like P wave or the S waves, as we learned in elementary school, that you can use to kind of telegraph if a big earthquake is going to be coming. But I don't think there's any like conclusive 100% reliable means by which to predict earthquake activity.
Well, there is the formula where you can predict an earthquake is going to happen, but you can't pinpoint its location. That's like the only drawback. Like, you can't say it will happen here at this coordinate, but you can say from, seismic readings plus the shift in the tectonic plates, you can kind of formulate that there will be an earthquake. And they say major is 5.5 on the Richter scale and above. So when we were in Japan, I felt multiple 6.0 earthquakes. And it's a weird feeling to feel an earthquake. It's just like an outer body experience almost, because you're moving and everything's moving, but you're not doing anything. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine like an 8.1 or like one that happened in, was it 2011? In Japan.
And in the Pacific there, the Tohoku earthquake.
Yeah, it was 9.3, I think, or 9.1.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, that's craziness. What about this, I don't know if it's myth or what it is, but people are suggesting that fracking may be linked to an increase in earthquakes. There was some Texas town or some Midwestern town that went from like maybe 3 earthquakes a year to like over 300.
Well, what you're doing is you're basically messing with that plate, so to speak, because you're going down there and you're changing the fundamental layout of how it's laying and how, because there's lava flow and that movement can alter, how the plate effectively moves. So if you go down there and if you change it in any way, you could effectively cause more earthquakes to happen. I don't think that they have legitimate proof to verify that. Fracking is the cause, but the increase of fracking correlates with the increase of earthquakes. You put 2 to 2 together, what do you get, Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing. Like, even though, like, what is it? Evidence of absence is not absence of evidence.
Yeah.
And yet you have to temper that with correlation does not equal causation, right? Just because 2 things happen around the same time doesn't mean that one causes the other. So it's like we just need more data, right? We need more information. But yeah, it's pretty suspicious nonetheless. What else is up? What else are we talking about? What about Shkreli? I want to talk about Shkreli.
I think that he
Shkreli
is a man of opportunity. He just did it in the wrong way.
Yeah, he fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, like,
that's
there's no other way to say it. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah,
it's morally wrong. First off,
yeah, it's morally wrong. Like, let's just start with the basic foundation, right? Like, it's not nice to do. Like, it's not a good thing to raise it over 3,000%, 5,000%, some obscene number,
astronomical, really.
Yeah,
but you look at the other things at a business standpoint, like take the medicine out of it. People really wouldn't have a problem with it because it doesn't affect anybody because you don't need it. Where in that instance, you need that for treatment or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So he's doing that like companies do this with other medicines, but they do it like over a long, drawn-out period where it goes from like 1% to 2%. It's like you're not really seeing the effect until one day you're paying $30 when you used to pay $3.
I saw him, he was on the interview in CNBC, and he's like, other drug companies have done this even at higher margins, even at higher percentages. And I'm like kind of wondering like now who those other companies are who've done this. I see it as like, it's definitely opportunistic and it's definitely kind of morally questionable, but his argument on CNBC was that they were going to use the additional funding to fund further research into a better drug. And apparently physicians were like, we don't need a better drug. Like, this does exactly what we need it to do. And he tried to make a counter argument. I think that if you're going into biotech, and biotech is one of the most difficult industries to break into as a startup. And it seems like that's basically kind of what he's attempting to do here. He's attempting to leverage his hedge funding, his financial background in order to help like break a new biotech startup. There's so much overhead that's necessary, and the FDA approval process is Byzantine and it's a labyrinth. It's difficult to navigate. You need so much overhead in order to get a drug to market. How much money do you think, what ballpark estimate do you think it takes to get a drug from the lab to market, would you say? What's your guess?
From watching documentaries and interviews, especially if it's on a mass scale, you're looking at billion, at least a billion.
Yeah. We're talking like billions. Like, in order to get through all of the human trials and all of the approval process that the FDA has. And the FDA is like, it's not, I mean, yeah, it does. It serves the people, right? Because it's making sure that, you know, we're not buying things with arsenic in it. But then it also kind of flies in the face of free market and shackles innovation, because it requires all of this overhead. And so, you know, Joe Schmuckatelli in his laboratory, in his garage, it could be anywhere, right? I mean, inventors are not just mechanical engineers. They could be chemical engineers or whatever. But he comes up with a new drug that does whatever. Like, he's just tinkering around, and he comes up with an anti-aging drug. In order, like, the likelihood that his drug will ever make it to market is near zero. You know what I mean?
And it's only because he doesn't have the money,
right,
to get it there.
Right,
the product works, but sorry, you don't have the capital to support it.
Right, and this is one of the issues that's facing biotech startups. And in some ways, I don't mean to be like play devil's advocate for this guy, because I saw the interview. I think he's a smug son of a bitch who needs to swallow his own teeth. No, I'm joking.
No, you're not.
But he was pissing me off, like his kind of non-committal answers, and like it was all seemed pre-rehearsed and really kind of sociopathic on a level. Like, maybe he wouldn't pass the psychopath test or whatever. They asked him if he would lower the price. He said no. But one of the reasons why he may be doing this, or being forced to do something like this in order to fund Turing as a venture startup, is because it's so fucking difficult to make a biotech company profitable. So, I don't know.
He's getting a lot of backlash, and I mean, does he deserve it? Yeah. He deserves it. I mean, there's no way to beat the bush. You deserve what you get, especially when you do something like that.
Yeah.
But he may know stuff that we don't, and we're just quick to judge, saying, "Oh, you bigot," or whatever you want to call him. You know, he may have done it for good reasons that are unknown to us.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, friends of mine on Facebook were saying, you know, it's too early to start waving a pitchfork at him. My friend Dave said that, Scary Dave. And I would tend to agree, but my knee-jerk reaction, it's so difficult to to maintain the discipline to resist the knee-jerk reaction, right? Like, if I see and it's really quite petty too. I mean, I'm not a good person. I'm not the best person. You know, I'm not perfect. So, like, I'll get to the point, even with interacting with someone, if I don't like their face, immediately there's snap judgment. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm pretty good with that. Like, obviously, just because I'm actually really good at that. Just because someone isn't, you know, visually attractive, or whatever the case may be, I'll still give them, you know, the benefit of the doubt. Like, I know we both served in the Marine Corps, where appearance standards were fucking huge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, in that kind of culture, in that environment, I was taken back to a time that I hadn't experienced since like fourth grade, where we were in the habit of ridiculing people for the way they looked, for their weight, for their whatever it was. It was just really kind of elementary. And, you know, I'm not like that. But there was the initial impression that I got was just like, this guy's not to be trusted. This is not a good person.
I'm guilty with that with a ex-presidential candidate, Scott Walker. You know, you looked at him and you're just like, this guy just looks... There's something about him that makes me want to punch him in the face. I don't know.
He's got a punchable face. Scott Walker was like, my initial impression was, this guy's a fucking creep. Like, he's licking... I don't know if you saw in the first debate, he was like looking directly at the camera. He winked and did like all but blew a kiss at the camera and like did this weird thing where he licked like the back of his lips before he answered a question. It was really off-putting. I was like, this guy's like a porn star. Like, this is not a presidential candidate.
You watch House of Cards, right?
Fuck yeah.
Remember when Zoe Barnes tells Francis Underwood to look at the camera or whatever, and she'll blow him a kiss? That's what comes to mind. Like, maybe he was giving a wink to some mistress. Or...
He does seem like mistress-worthy kind of candidate. Like, I get that vibe from him. Like, he's definitely...
My fiance interviewed him a while back when he was in Greenville, I don't know, rallying or whatever they say they're doing. And when she interviewed him, like, they gave her questions that they wanted the station to ask. So I mean, like, she couldn't ask him anything prying or anything. So it was basically like policy questions. So I thought it was weak to begin with, but she said he was a good guy. But
that's why Trump is polling so high, because he says what the fuck is on his mind. He doesn't filter. There's none of this like, okay, I gotta establish it. And I want to, on the outset, I don't endorse Trump. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying the reason why he's responding with the American people is because he's doing the exact opposite of that. And it's telling that Scott Walker is the first to drop out of the race too. And now you're saying that, like, you know, he was only asking these like canned questions, right?
Yeah, like, did you see the Stephen Colbert where he gave, like, he's like, look, Trump, I'm going to give you a meatball to smack out of here, a home run, right? And he's like, I'm going to throw it up in the air, and you just crank it out of here. Are you ready? Yeah. And Donald Trump was like, yeah, go ahead. And he you know, did the motion of throwing this meatball in the air, and he said, is Obama born in America, or was Obama born in America? And he didn't answer it. He's like, you know what?
Are you serious?
Well, because remember how he was like, he paid like, what, $10 million to try and find the birth certificates to prove that he was an American citizen or born in America?
Yeah.
And he couldn't find it. Yeah. Or like the funding like wasn't enough to find the documents that he needed. He's like, I'm over it. I'm only worried about, you know, what I got to do. So, I mean, he never answers the question. Like, and especially with, I think it was in New Jersey, where the guy was like, we got a problem in America. We got, you know, Obama.
Oh, God.
Obama's a Muslim, and Muslims are a problem. And then Trump was like, I hear that. I hear people saying that, and we're taking a look at it. And,
we're taking a look at a lot of things.
Yeah, we're taking a look at a lot of things, and we'll get back to you. He never really answered this question or mentioned that he said anything about Muslims. But then everyone was like, you didn't defend Obama. You know, you think he's a Muslim. And Trump said...
What did he say to that?
He said, it's not my job to defend Obama, because Obama wouldn't defend me, first of all. So, like, it's about what I'm going to say, and that has nothing to do with my, you know, agenda, basically, is what he said.
Right. I mean, everyone latched onto that to attempt to take the wind out of Trump's sails. Like, even Clinton, I think, came out and was like, if you want to be the president, you need to start acting more presidential. Like, I like the way that, see, that happened to McCain. And, you know, hate him or love him, like, at least John McCain conducted himself with a bit of honor in that regard when he, like, told this really sweet old grandmother that, she was basically wrong and that was not true and that, no, Obama was not Al Qaeda or whatever. And, it was really classy to see. But I think it's part and parcel to Donald Trump's, who he is as a person. He's just not going to apologize, and that any what would you say, any admission of guilt, however insignificant, is too much.
Yeah.
It just, and I hate to say it, but that's kind of a quality that would serve a president pretty well. Like, as a president, you don't want to admit to wrongdoing, because any admission of guilt kind of opens the floodgates to I don't know, whatever, a flood.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to avoid that. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm on the fence with Donald Trump. What about we were talking about judging people on their looks. Did you hear the story? I know you did, because in the lead up you introduced me to this. Christie telling a National Guard airman that he needs to lose weight.
And it wasn't just a normal guy in the National Guard. It was a commander of New Jersey, of the state he governs. Christie has a known, you can call it a health problem, because it's a health problem, because he's had medical surgeries to try and fix it.
He had lap band surgery.
Yeah, so he has the audacity to tell this man to lose weight, or else you're losing your job, or you're losing your command, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's in the military. He's got body standards he's got to make to.
Right.
But maybe you should delegate telling somebody with a weight problem to fix a weight problem,
Right.
Maybe.
I mean, like you said, the commander is he knows full well the body standards that he has to adhere to, and he knows what's expected of him. And whether or not Christie really has the right to criticize someone when he is so openly criticizable, that's to be debated. It's kind of from the perspective of someone who doesn't cook, or doesn't make movies, but is a movie critic. You know what I mean? It's hard to, I don't know. It's you can accept criticism from anywhere, but it means more when it comes from someone who is doing what you're doing,
Yeah, there's no respect there, because he's not in the military, and two,
right, he's
got the same problem you got, trying to tell you to fix yourself.
Right.
It's just not, I don't know. I don't agree with it. I feel like he maybe should have delegated that to someone in the military. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
See, that's the thing. There's definitely oversight in the military, right? I mean, I don't know. I get the impression that maybe it's just because we come from a different breed. Having served in the Marine Corps, there's no way that, I don't care which kind of unknown periphery activity it is, but if there's someone who looks like that commander, they're going to get dressed down. Somebody's going to say something.
I mean, in the Marine Corps, you would never see a commander think about it. When have you ever seen someone in a commanding officer position out of shape?
Never.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a small unit, they're still, they do appoint people to that position off of appearance for that same reason. If the commanding officer is overweight or looks overweight, how's he gonna tell his troops, get into shape, you're gonna make weight, or whatever the case is? It's not gonna work. So he must have gained the weight in that position, or the Air Force National Guard just has really slack, just, I don't know, maybe, oh, that's okay, he looks good.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
You
they
can
are
fit in a moo it's all right.
yeah
It's good to
they
go.
they are more career oriented,
Right.
not so much like
Combat
the
oriented.
full spectrum. It's like, can you do your job? Good. The other stuff is like takes a back seat.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to that though. Like, what if the body weight standards were a little bit, excessive in the sense that what if there is a drone operator who is the greatest drone operator in the fucking world, right? In the history of drones and video games and remote controlled flying devices or whatever. But he just so happens to be, you know, fat. I mean, what are we gonna do? Are we seriously gonna be like, oh no, sorry, you can't join the drone corps because, you're overweight. Sorry. Or are we going to be like, wait a minute, we want to have a decisive advantage in war, or in the if there ever were a war or hostile extraterrestrials attack planet Earth, we want this guy in the drone pilot seat and allow him to join. It seems like we're getting rid of a lot of people who are actually really good, talented, and they don't need to be. They don't need to run, a 16-minute 3 mile in order to do their job. I don't know.
That's one problem I had with, like, I know things are standard for a reason, but as our job in ordnance, it really didn't matter if you could do 20 pull-ups and 100 crunches or whatever, how many it was. Could you do your job? Did you know the information? Like, because our job was very meticulous as far as the details and as far as knowledge is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, I mean, like your argument is your physical attributes don't correlate to your job. Why does it matter? Why lose someone who is so capable and so promising that now you lose them because they're not a meathead? So, well, not to say everyone who's in shape's a meathead, but it's using that term loosely.
Yeah, everyone's a meathead in a different way. You know what I mean? Like, some people are meatheads with science and technology. Some people are meatheads with pull-ups. Some people are meatheads with running. Like, the goal of a military should be to get the meatheads into their own respective meathead categories, and like to sort the meatheads by their own meathead predilections and nuanced character traits, because everybody's good at something. I'm committed to that idea, and I think everybody wants to get better at something. So I don't know. It's not set up right.
No, it's not. But going from this military topic, right now, it's a huge debate. Women and infantry.
Right.
I don't understand the debate because I look at it from one side of view.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my mom, my sister, my wife, aunt, niece, whatever the title she holds, relation to me. I wouldn't want her in a combat position.
What if she's the best sniper that the world has ever seen, though? You know what I mean? Like, this is the trade-off. Like, yeah, I understand that argument. I don't want my mom or my, future daughters, if I have daughters or whatever, I don't want them to be in a combat situation like that either. But what if they are the best person for the job?
I would find a job that best correlates to their skills and use them in that way, because there's a lot of jobs that women do in the infantry that are just better than men. It's just because they're wired differently, they think differently. So there's some
lower center of gravity.
Yeah. There's some jobs where women are better than men, and then in some cases there's some jobs where men are better than women. There's that equal trade-off, and I think that if you lose the world's best sniper because she's a female, I mean, think about it though. when
I'm not saying that she's like it doesn't have to be sniper, like could be anything like pilot, like F-18 pilot.
well,
Women have been shown to have like I don't know, they respond better as pilots because they have lower centers of gravity or there's something weird about their body that allows them to perform maneuvers. They have higher thresholds for pain. I don't know. It could all be apocryphal, but that's what I heard.
But there are a lot of women that are fighter pilots or
Yeah.
helicopter pilots, and I feel like that's I have nothing wrong with that. The thing is though, you crash, like you have a Black Hawk Down situation. I just there was a retired Marine general who spoke. It's like 98 or 95, and then they were having this issue of women in the military that they're having now, like the big debate, like trying to push heavy into it, and it's a good video to watch because he talks about it in such a manner to where it really is like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, you're right. Why is this even an argument? And after watching that, it came down to the one thing, like I don't want my blank, whatever female to be in infantry combat position. I wouldn't want that.
But I again I have to say like someone like Ronda Rousey, okay? Ronda Rousey could beat the shit out of me, okay? She would hold me over a barrel. Ronda Rousey, she would just have her way with me. I would be like a rag doll. I would just be broken, okay? Like she could definitely fucking do it. You know what I mean? Like she definitely has the stones for it. That woman who's portrayed in the Game of Thrones, she's like the female. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I'm not caught up yet on this season, but I do watch it.
You know the blonde chick who's like really tall? She's a knight. She's like she's big as shit.
Well, she's sent to protect Arya Stark, and then she ends up protecting the blonde guy. Can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, what, Tyrion? No, the one-handed guy, right?
Not James.
Whatever his name is. I mean, the Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones guy.
We're gonna get angry emails from Game of Thrones fans, like, why didn't you know who it is? Blah, blah, blah.
It's either Tyrion Lannister, something Lannister.
Jamie Lannister.
Jamie Lannister, yeah. Okay, we knew it.
That's it, Game of Thrones fans. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Back the fuck up.
The bald dude. Let's see if you know the bald guy's name.
The bald guy. Nobody knows the bald guy's name. He's he's just like a court jester. He's like part of the friggin' support staff.
But he spits so much information. Like he's very knowledgeable when it like in that time frame, so to speak. Granted, he has no testicles.
Yeah, the eunuch. I don't know. What is his name?
I don't know.
See, you can't ask a question if you don't know the answer.
I thought you might know, and then I would have looked good. I don't know.
I see. Yeah, no. I mean, I know some basic Game of Thrones stuff, but I'm not that good. But anyway, like that chick is big as shit. Like she would run shit. I think it comes down to this. Like, don't make any allowances for anyone. There is a standard. They have to meet the standard. If they can't meet the standard, then sorry. Just because you're this or you're that doesn't automatically get you in to the club. Like, you have to prove your mettle.
I agree with that, so to speak. But there's that, like, camaraderie, brotherhood type thing that you get when, like, in boot camp, it's just you and however many guys, and you may hate each other, you may fight, threaten to kill each other, but there's that camaraderie or that brotherhood where you'll get, like, especially through the Crucible. If anyone knows what the Crucible is, I don't think it'd be possible if you didn't have that brotherhood, that camaraderie. And you lose that aspect when you introduce females because men act differently. It's just true. Men act differently around females. Females will act different around males. And I'm not trying to like create this separation of male and female. But when it just comes to a combat role, and like you said, there are hundreds and thousands of women that are far more capable than me. But I strongly believe, and I'll say it till I die, women should not be in any combat role as far as like an infantry position.
Well, I mean, as a figure of speech, I kind of accept it, but like, I mean, not we don't know. We don't have enough information yet, right? Because I don't know. Like, I saw this movie, okay? Could be like prophecy of the future. It's called Starship Troopers. And in that movie, women and men were in the same infantry battalion, killing huge bugs.
Yeah, but
so,
you see that?
That's what the future is. Sorry, I'm gonna have to get used to it.
It was like this sexually tense, like, as soon as we're done killing, we're just gonna have a huge orgy in the shower.
There wasn't an orgy scene in the shower. They were just showering.
You don't know that. There could have been, after the shower scene ended,
bodies.
they just had this huge orgy. You don't know.
That's true. I don't know. I mean, I would hope that in the military of the future that sex would be less frowned upon, right? I mean, geez, you can remember. I don't want to like make this whole podcast about military life and stuff, but you remember like how frowned upon sex was in the barracks or between people, just in general. It's like kind of like taboo almost, And when one of our dear friends got pregnant, we had someone who was not as dear to us attempt to convince this person to terminate the pregnancy, and I'm glad that that didn't happen. But yeah, it's like really frowned upon. You couldn't even be in the same room as someone of the opposite sex without having the door open and all this. Now they advanced that, and like I said, I don't want to make this all about this, so we should move on to the next topic. But that was under the auspices of preventing sexual assault, because at that time there was a wave, a pandemic of sexual assault kind of gripping the military. But,
and that refers back to that knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
That they had a problem. What do? They eliminated the problem by not allowing it to happen. But
right. Even though it just happened, it just mutates, right? People just get smart.
Yeah.
So they fuck in the stairwell instead of fucking in their fucking room, or wherever they fuck in the laundry room or whatever.
It's just the same thing with drugs. You can make it illegal. You can make it harder to get. People are still going to do it.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Better, it's better to just bring that out. Bring it into the light. What else we got?
Moving on to, I know this, I don't know how you feel about it all the way, but I do know this. I hate to say it like this, this Muslim kid, like, that's not who he is. Just because that may be his religion or whatever. He's a kid from Texas or wherever he was, and he made a clock in a briefcase that resembles an IED or, a suitcase bomb, whatever you want to call it.
Clockboy.
Yeah. So he makes this, and from what I've heard in interviews that people have talked to him, it wasn't the first teacher that saw it that had the problem with it. He brought it in the 3 different classes, and finally a teacher confronted him about it, and he wouldn't answer any questions. So they went to the principal's office, and he still would refuse to answer questions. And what the guy said that talked to him, he said the problem would have been, kaput if he would have answered the questions. And then they got suspicious because he wasn't giving them answers. So they're like, what is this? Why'd you bring it to school? He wasn't really giving any information. And he said that when he was talking to him, because it was either a Skype or the phone call, he could hear his sister in the background coaching him, telling him what to say. And his dad has come out very, like, pro-Muslim, what's the word I'm looking for?
Activist.
Yeah, because he wants to like get this like message out there that Muslims have it bad because of stereotypes, and they need to be, given a leg up, so to speak.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
But like so many people are like for the kid, not knowing the situation, that they just automatically go in because of politically correctness or you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They automatically went in saying, he was right. Everyone's wrong for judging him. Let's not forget, people do crazy stuff. I would have much rather offend somebody in the short term than,
count dead bodies or something.
The news headline could have been suitcase bomb blows up in school, mass casualties.
Yeah, but I mean,
but it wasn't the case.
There
but it very well could have been with the things that have been going on around the world and the threats ISIS has given. Even though I don't know how you feel about that, as far as ISIS and everything.
I got a whole bag of tricks about that. Yeah. So there's not enough. We don't have enough information at this point. Like my knee-jerk reaction. Here we go back to the knee-jerk. When I saw this, my knee-jerk reaction was, here we go. Smart kid builds something, brings it into school. Teacher gets upset about it, and they have him arrested because they thought it was a bomb or suspicious bomb or something like that, a fraud bomb, which actually itself is a punishable offense. To build something that looks like a bomb is a crime as well, as I've come to find out in researching this. But so my knee-jerk reaction was, oh, come on, like just leave the kid alone. And then like you had like MIT come out and say this is exactly what we're looking for in a student. And then we had Obama was like, cool clock, Ahmed. Like we want to come to the White House. And then Microsoft gave him a ton of gear. But then more of the story started coming to light. The fact that it wasn't the first teacher that saw it, that he was told not to take it out or something, and then like he took it out again. Again, this is all speculation and hearsay because I don't know like the full story. But he was told not to take it out, and then there was this report that stated that it was just a store-bought clock that was just taken out of its box and then mounted inside this briefcase, which was like a pencil case, but it was made to look like a Halliburton, not a Halliburton, but a Pelican case, like one of those ruggedized briefcases with a bunch of like extraneous wires that don't need to be there to make it look like quote unquote more menacing. But when I was reading that, I was like, okay, this is just like kind of a stretch. There was a story where they were like, well, there were countless other 11, 10-year-olds that are engaged in projects much more interesting than just a digital clock. Now, I haven't inspected it. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if he built it. If it comes out that he just removed it from its case and then put it into this briefcase, then like any, sympathy I might have had for him is just really going to quickly evaporate, because it's like, bro, you didn't even really build it. You don't even own a soldering iron. Like, I know, 10-year-olds. I know 10-year-olds. I don't know them personally, but friends of mine work with Ugandan kids, and they're making robots and stuff. The Fundy Bots, which is a group that a friend of mine, Linz Craig, who I want to have on the program, he goes out and volunteers with. They're making like full on like robots, like they're soldering it, they're programming the EEPROMs with Arduino and stuff. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. If it turns out that he just basically took this electronics device out of its case and put it in this pencil case, like where's the sympathy? I don't really. It's not at the same level. That isn't to say that he shouldn't be, excited and motivated to do science. I think we should be encouraging students to do science. And I feel like no matter what, like a kid is a kid. He was a kid. Like that the staff at the school kind of like mishandled this. There should have been some teacher there who was cool, who was just like, oh, all right, yeah, cool. Like, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Like, did you solder this? Did you make this? Like, did you program this? Like, there should have been like more done on the administration side. But again, intelligence like that of electrical engineering, like knowledge of electrical engineering, is not very common. So I wouldn't put it past a Texas public school not to have somebody that knows that stuff. But then again, Texas is full of smart people too. So I don't know.
There's a guy on Twitter that bashes this kid because of the same point you're trying to make. His argument, after looking and talking to him, looking at his quote-unquote clock invention and talking to him, is what you're saying. He basically bought a clock, disassembled it, and placed it in a briefcase.
Yeah.
He didn't really invent a time-counting piece where it tracks time somehow, or he just disassembled and reassembled pretty much. Which, I mean, that at its fundamental core is what a lot of not scientists, but engineers do. The reverse, like you disassemble something to learn about it, then you reassemble it.
Engineering.
So I mean, he quote unquote did do something cool, but I think it, one, blown out of proportion, two, gotten way more attention than it should have, and three, the staff at that school botched how that should have been handled. One, if they really thought it was a bomb, they didn't do the procedures for a bomb in the school. So, I mean...
Oh, that's right.
They just kind of, like, bypassed it and just called in the police, and then he was taken away.
Like, she brought it to the office.
Yeah, like, she should have just left it where it was.
Right.
Evacuated the school, and, but that didn't happen. So, like, it gives, like, speculation to what really went on. And that goes back to that interview I saw where the guy that actually talked to Ahmed, he didn't really answer any questions. He didn't really... You know how kids get quiet, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't give information out. Well, the lack of him giving information caused a ruckus, and it escalated real quick. I mean, that hashtag, I stand for Ahmed or whatever, went trending like almost instantly, like around the world.
Yeah, it did. It took off.
Not to say that he doesn't need that support, but maybe the situation, the circumstances, again, the knee-jerk reaction, not knee-jerk enough.
Whole lot of knee-jerk going down. Let's see. Let's change gears a little bit. How are we on time there, AJ?
We're about 45 minutes in.
All right, good to go. So maybe we have time enough for like another piece. Let's see. I mean, divestment. I got $2.3 trillion being removed from investments in oil and gas. But, I mean, that's just that's a trend. Everybody knows about that. What else is new? Ben Carson says that evolution is a product of Satan.
Ben Carson says a lot of things that I don't like. But he said one thing I do like.
Yeah.
His idea about tax reform is everybody pays 10%. Right?
A flat tax.
A flat tax.
I thought that was like Trump's or Jeb's tax platform. I thought that Carson's was like based on the Bible.
Well, I mean, it's kind of based on the Bible because in the Bible it talks about tithing, 10% or whatever it is. But his idea about this is, for example, and Trump didn't like it because obviously Trump's a billionaire, so he'd be paying a lot. Whereas, people that only make $20,000, they're going to pay, $2,000 a year on taxes? So, like, Carson's idea was that him only paying 10% should help him make more because he's not having to worry about tax loopholes or trying to, lower into a tax bracket. He's just going to be able to worry about making more money, hopefully. And that'll help with the deficit. That'll help with, budget problems or being able to fund certain things. So, like, the idea about a flat tax is, one, it's fair to everybody because 10% is going to affect everybody the same, regardless if you're a billionaire or you only make $20,000 a year.
Right.
I just really wish. I think the taxes are totally mishandled. Yeah. How we collect them, how they're used, and then it's just the whole system. You could eliminate the IRS if you did a flat tax bracket. Everyone pays 10%. You don't need people to like figure out tax brackets, H&R Block, all these weird, tax companies wouldn't need a job anymore.
Yeah, exactly. All the lawyers would go out of business, basically, that are handling tax law and stuff, finding loopholes for people. I thought that Trump was in favor of paying more taxes, though. I remember him saying that in some soundbite. He was like, he was like, I think that we should tax the hell out of the hedge fund managers, but I wouldn't mind paying more tax. I wouldn't mind opting out of Social Security, which was like another issue.
Well, yeah, he did say that recently about Social Security. Like, a billionaire doesn't need to draw Social Security, even if you paid for it. You're a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
One, it's like pennies on the dollar to what you make.
Mm-hmm.
And two, do you really need that? Maybe if you like take the people that make over $1 million a year and you subsidize their, Social Security that they earn to people that aren't making that much.
Maybe Shkreli would draw Social Security.
Yeah, he probably would too. I mean, that guy that looks like he would.
He's like the Scrooge McDuck.
He's like, I got every penny coming to me. I don't care how it comes. It's coming to me.
We touched on Syria a little bit earlier. I want to make people aware of this article that was published in, I think it was The Guardian. Was it The Guardian? It's called, the name of the division. This is about U.S. support for Syrian rebels. And I had talked about this briefly, or actually almost for the end, not even briefly. I mean, I got pretty emotional. It was a pretty lengthy conversation about Syria in podcast 4, where I was kind of criticizing the narrative of the moderate rebel that's been attempted to be advanced by members of the intelligence community, Obama administration, or other people involved in Syria operations have been trying to advance this fiction of a moderate rebel force, a moderate terrorist, basically terrorist light, like not the not so bad terrorist, right?
Yeah.
This article came out talking about how Division 30, which was in Syria, was trained by the U.S. and armed by us. And when I say U.S., I say CIA. This was an attempt by CIA or Special Operations military to fund and stand up an insurgent force or irregular force to fight against, namely, Assad. Like, that's the whole reason why we're meddling in Syria at all. It's not so much, in my opinion. Now, I have to preface this as my opinion. It has very little to do with ISIS and everything to do with Assad. Like, we want Assad to go. This has been stated by Secretary of State John Kerry. This has been reiterated by Obama. This is the status quo in the United States. We want him to go. Now, I don't really care. I don't think it's our business to go and, say, okay, we don't like this guy, so you need to go and just basically, supply and fund, support, and train something as heinous as ISIS in order to affect that outcome. But the article talks about how the U.S. trained Division 30, which are like the quote-unquote good rebels, quote, betray the U.S. and hand weapons over to Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria, and to my understanding, that Al Qaeda affiliate is in lockstep in alliance with ISIS. So that was the last news item that I had that I wanted to share. I'd like to get what do you think of what's happening in Syria?
Reading articles that I've read about, different positions of power and different groups, because there's multiple, I guess you could say, fronts. There's the private militia, which there are, veterans that have gone over there to fight for them, and they've gotten not threats, but they've, kind of like trying to been stiff-armed by FBI and CIA saying, look, you're at risk for being kidnapped.
You're talking about the U.S. service members who went to fight with the Kurdish Peshmerga forces in the north, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they were almost stiff-armed by certain elements of the U.S. government, namely the FBI and CIA, saying, hey, look, you're at risk for kidnapping. We're not saying we can arrest you for this, but there is this, quote-unquote threat that you present to national security with you being there.
Right.
And they kind of said, whatever, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not killing anybody. I'm just here training, helping them, be prepared. But then there's this idea that there's all these factions, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
man.
And some are getting funded by CIA, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's no document saying that CIA paid for this or supported with this. But
you'll never see it.
There's paper trails that, point you in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's this cloud looming over that area. I mean, there's been this tension for thousands of years, from the Israelites to, not even just Syria, Iran, Pakistan, just like everyone in that area wants to fight and neutralize the other people. It doesn't matter, like, if they're going to do it through nuclear matters or, like, propaganda. I mean, it's just, I don't know what's going on there. Like,
it's such a, what's the word for it? It's like a cat's cradle. It's like it's a black hole. It's hard to know. Like, and then I wonder, like, what if this is all a show? What if it's, like, secretly a paradise and all of this is, like, staged to keep people from wanting to emigrate there? I try to flip it like that. Obviously, like, all signs point to no on that one, but it's like fun to think about maybe if that were the case. But you're right, there are so many elements involved, so many different fronts, and so many different people and factions and groups, like I said, like the moderate rebels, the Nusra rebels, ISIS, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Assad, Russia, like us. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's involved there in Syria. Russia recently has reinforced their positions there. Russia doesn't have too many foreign bases, okay? Actually, it has, like, almost zero, except for the one submarine base that it had in Syria. Syria was like its go-to in that region and had still been, an ally of the Soviet Union. Now, what you've seen is Russia is not going to give Syria up. They're not going to give Assad up. They're going to throw everything that they have into Syria to make sure that Assad stays in power and that their influence in that country is preserved, either by Assad or otherwise. So they're building 2 more bases there, and there's this really kind of scary, kind of strange coincidence of players happening now, because you have U.S. fighter jets that have been liberally, and I argued against this because fundamentally I kind of disagree with it. I'm kind of like a Rand Paul type of libertarian when it comes to this, but we had no business violating sovereign Syrian airspace without permission by Assad. He never gave us direct permission, but he basically like turned the other way, and we were attacking ISIS targets inside Syria, maybe as a cover for attacking infrastructure targets inside Syria to further destabilize that country to make toppling Assad that much easier. But that's a conspiracy theory, and I won't go any further into that. But so Russia's going to throw everything they have to defend Assad, and I think we just recently, there was some movement where we basically we relented. We realized in the calculation, like, it's not worth it to get further involved into this conflict where we have F-18 fighter jets flying in the same airspace as Sukhoi fighters that the Russians are now flying. There are Russian pilots and Russian aircraft, military aircraft, operating inside Syria under the auspices of attacking ISIS, right? ISIS is always used as the excuse to conduct military operations inside Syria, whether it's the United States or whether it's Russia. Both sides are using that as cover for operating in that country. And there's no way that, I think in the calculation that we made, we realized it's not worth it. It's not worth it to potentially ignite this into a regional and potentially a world war by attempting to depose Assad, and that the relenting took this form. We said we're willing to. We don't care as long as Assad goes. He doesn't have to go right now, but eventually. So we've already kind of capitulated in that sense. We weren't looking to get into this. Russia is kind of like a cornered animal at this point. They've had some wins, both with the inertia that Putin was able to garner from the Sochi Olympics into what happened in the Ukraine with the Crimean Peninsula. He was able to take that. Now that war is still ongoing. I mean, to certain degrees, and starts and fits, I think it's going. But yeah, that's basically it. It's really confusing. Syria is a fucking mindfuck. It's a paradox. It's a minefield of questions and uncertainty, cloak and dagger mystery, a lot of fucking secret, top secret, super secret squirrel, secret CIA shit going on. It's confusing and fascinating and frightening and scary. So
I want to speak to someone in Israel, Syria, and Iran that knows what's going on, but doing so will put a red flag on us. We will have people listening to our conversations, I mean, because we'll potentially be a threat. Why would someone need to speak to someone in those three countries,
Yeah.
From the, that NSA kind of mindset of like, that's a red flag. That could be someone supporting terrorism, whatever the argument they would to tap into our phones and emails or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Or Michael Hastings us and fucking hack into our car and drive it into a tree at 100 miles an hour or whatever. I mean,
but someone's got to get these answers.
Yeah.
There's journalists that are there doing the job, but they're not asking the right questions because they're quote unquote owned by a certain company that doesn't want that agenda being pushed out, right?
Oh yeah.
So I mean, they're there just basically saying, this is what's happening. I'm not going to tell you any more than what I'm supposed to tell you.
Right. You'll never get the straight dope from a reporter who's embedded either, because they need all that stuff needs to be vetted by the military commander in that region.
Yeah, because there's that stupid national security risk. Like, whatever you say, we don't want it to impose a risk to our people there or to, our dignitaries.
Right.
Why can't we just get some straight answers about
dope?
Yeah, what's going on? Why are we doing these airstrikes? Really? Why are we supporting Israel, but we are making deals with Iran at the same time trying to fuel a coup in Syria to depose the leader? What is our motive dealing with three? And then we still got a presence in Afghanistan and Iraq. Very small, but we still have a presence there. Like, why do we have such a big, hand in this little tiny area. Like, what
Yeah.
what do we get from it? What's the point?
I'll tell you what the point is. I mean, from where I sit, it has a lot to do with it has a lot less to do with us and a lot more to do with them. When I say them, I'm talking about the Sunni and the Shia. Saudi Arabia and Iran are fighting each other by proxy. In that proxy right now happens to be Syria. Saudi Arabia is using the United States, as they've done quite quite effectively over the last 20 years, to fight their wars for them. Now, when it came to Yemen, Yemen is the country that's directly southeast. It shares a border with Saudi Arabia. It's a small country, but it has a port, and it's open to the Gulf and everything. Saudi Arabia, there were elections in that country, and I don't know if there was a coup or there was an actual democratically elected change of government in the country, but Saudi Arabia was like, look, we can't have this on our southern border. Like, you're going to do something about it, right? And the president was like, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to fight your own war there. So for the first time ever, you're seeing an Arab, well, not first time ever. That's totally not true at all. For the first time since maybe Iraq and Iran were going back and forth in the 80s, you're seeing an Arab country fighting another Arab country. I mean, granted, there's another distinction that needs to be made. Iran is not comprised of Arabs. Arabs are like Saudi Arabians. They're probably, I think, Yemeni. Maybe not though. They're Qatari. They live in Dubai. Like, these are Arabs. The Persians and like all of the other various kinds of people live in Iran and not Afghanistan. Maybe Yemen. I don't know. But I guess the main splitting point really has little to do with the ethnicity and more to do with the religion. So you have the Shia and the Sunni, and yeah, like I don't know. The more we talk about it, the more confused I get.
Well, because there are so many countries in that little area, and then there's a vast amount of religions. So, like, if you're categorizing by, people, nationality, and then the religion, and then you break off because there's the Sunni and the Shiites in one religion. So then you got one country with one religion with two different branches off. So you have, it just gets so confusing on who's supporting who hates who wants to fight, and who wants to kill. Like, it's just mind-boggling to think about, because here in America, we don't really care about that stuff. Everyone's an American, you know. Doesn't matter if you're a Muslim American, Christian American, an atheist American. You're first and foremost an American, and I think
that's what I said. Yeah,
that's what's going on there. There's no, like, what's that word I'm looking for? Like, ownership of country, because you're split, and it's just it's sad, really, because we have such strong pride and crest to, like, that nation, the American flag symbol. It's just weird to see the vast opposite of that in so many different countries in such a small area. I mean, really, it only covers like half of the United States.
It's like places in LA where, like, you go on one block and you're a Crip, right? And then if you walk, a couple blocks the other direction and you're wearing blue, it's like, boom, it's open season. It's really quite fucked up. It's like gang warfare on a national scale. And like you said, like, if we see, like I said in podcast number 4, where I rant on about the Syria thing, I was saying how when I'm on the Mass Pike and I see someone with a New Hampshire license plate, I don't want to kill that person, but that's kind of what it's like. They're in such close proximity. Just because someone lives in New Hampshire or lives in South Carolina or lives in New Mexico or wherever they live doesn't make them any less American, though in the world it shouldn't make them any less human. And yet we strive so aggressively to form identity, and it's such a vital need for human beings to have identity, to know belonging, to be a part of something, that they will do dumb, really stupid shit in order to affect that outcome.
It really is mind-boggling to think about. Even in America, there's, you're an American, okay, and then you live let's say you live in South Carolina, then you're a South Carolinian, right? Then you live in the upstate, you're an upstatian, and then you're a Clemson fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just categorize someone who's an American down to that, and then you haven't even gotten to their personal preferences, like, are they white? Are they religious? Are they, like, what do they eat? Like, there's just so much categorizing that happens there, but it's on the extreme level. Like, if you don't like what I like, I'll kill you. Like,
Yeah.
Where does that mentality come from?
There's no reason. But the other thing is this. All we see is the bad side. I've heard friend of mine, Toussaint the Liberator, he's a reggae musician, and he worked with a group, there was a drummer there named John Campbell, who went to Jordan and partied alongside Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people. Were all partying, listening to reggae music, smoking pot. Everyone was having fun. Everyone was getting along. Like, all we hear is the terrible side. And I'm sure that it really is. But I really wonder, like, is it all like that? Of course, you must have some quiescence in order to affect civilization, right? Baby's got to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it can't all be bad, right?
Well, I could, like, because I've been to Liberia.
Well, no, actually, it can be.
Yeah,
No.
that's like in Liberia. You've heard of
God.
General Butt Naked, and there's
Give the listeners a little background with you in Liberia.
so before I joined the Marine Corps, I was basically a missionary going to Liberia. We did ex-combatant camps where people, like child soldiers, we basically did like a summer camp for them where they could come play games, because most of these people don't have a job, or so like they have all this free time but nothing to do. So we kind of give them things to do. And then we did medical missions where we brought in medical supplies and simple stuff like ibuprofen and then vitamins and stuff like that, because they don't have the access to that.
Were you bringing in healthcare professionals as well? Did you have any alliances with doctors or anybody like that?
When we did the one medical mission, we had 5 doctors and 7 nurses, and then we had a handful of people like me that were just there for support, like
Right.
to help, basically do any back work that needed to be done to help support them, because they were actually seeing people, treating illnesses, diseases, like the best of our abilities of the supplies we had. But
Did you see Ebola? I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you see Ebola while you were there?
when we were there, that really wasn't a problem yet.
Okay.
It didn't start happening until after. And then we even had our liaison guy where we stayed at when we're in Liberia. He comes back and forth to visit, because people support him. So he comes back to give like updates, what's going on and needs that they need. And he was actually stuck in America with his new wife for like, I think it was 12 months, because there was a flight ban. No one could go in and come out of Liberia. Yeah. And like for him, it's weird. He's in America, but he wants to go home, even though it's a third world country where people live monthly, feed and support families for $50.
Wow.
But when you see any interviews or stuff talking about Liberia, it's negative, like, people being abducted as kids and then being bred into child soldiers. That's all over now, but that's kind of like all you hear about when you think of Liberia or Sierra Leone or any other country like that has used child soldiers to take over governments, whatever. Luckily, the Middle East hasn't resulted to that yet, but could that happen in the future? I don't know. Like, I'd hope not, right?
Yeah, that would be awful. Child soldiers is like the bottom of the bucket of civilization's collapse, or it's like that's the lowest of the low, you know? It's
It,
horrible.
it's an experience that no amount of words will be able to like give you an insight or understand, like, because when you talk to these people and they tell you stories of whatever they've done, like, you can't hold them responsible, can you? It's like you were
Yeah,
kidnapped as a
right.
kid, drugged, and then if you didn't do what you were told, you were killed.
Right.
So I mean, but like that's going off in the deep end of the spectrum of what's happening in the Middle East versus what's happened in Africa. And I still feel like there's not enough, because like things are really bad there. People live and survive, but it's mind-boggling how people survive in that situation, especially when you like look at our customs, what we have been accustomed to and what we expect. And like I can just go to the store and buy a bunch of food, and most of it goes to waste, you know, expires or goes bad. But
Right.
that's kind of going on a little tangent there.
Well, it's a lot to think about. I'm committed. I'm still optimistic. Maybe that's because I don't live in a war-torn region. Maybe that's because I've never known the degree of suffering that these people have had to bear witness to. But with everything that's said, and I don't want to. This gets into a much larger conversation. Maybe we can talk about it at length in the next podcast. I know we're short on time now, but Steven Pinker had the book "The Better Angels of Our Nature," which states that, you know, cumulatively or over time here, it's shown that violence is trending down, that more people are becoming educated, that people are becoming less violent, that the world is becoming a safer place. So I like to, you know, maintain my optimism in that regard. But there are definitely problems. Syria is one of them. Of course, child warriors in Africa. That's terrible. But I'd like to think that things are getting better. Things are improving.
I think things are, but what we see is so negative from the media being like portraying certain areas. So I do think that things are getting better and are better than what they're portrayed. It's just when you're flooded with so much negativity, it's hard to see the light in the darkness, you know.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for us today. You have any final words for the people?
Now, I just want to thank everybody for listening, and you know, I think Ben's going to give the support information if you feel the need to support us, or if you want to support us in any way. Ben does have some information to share about that.
Right, yeah. I want to thank everyone. Thanks, AJ, again for a nice, good podcast, or another good podcast. It was really good. I want the people out there to know that if you would like to donate to us, we are actively seeking funding. We do this out of our pockets. It's it's what I would say we're professional, but we're not. We haven't been whatever ominous dominus deemed professional, but we're aspiring professional broadcasters, and we're actively seeking sponsors to help us to support the podcast. It's not free. We pay for the web hosting, we pay for bandwidth, we pay for the SoundCloud, there are a lot of expenses involved. If you would like to support the podcast, we would encourage you, please check out Patreon. Our Patreon account is patreon.com/BenBusy right now. All those funds go directly to support the podcast. Don't worry, AJ, I'm not secretly embezzling funds.
That's okay.
And we also have a PayPal link, which I'll post into the chat that goes to a shared PayPal account for AJ and I to help support the podcast. So if you would feel so generous, please donate. We thank you for